If you're waiting for warm weather to garden, you're already behind. These crops thrive in cold climates, and that's why I love them. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Willow Creek Homestead. My name is Kenzie if you are new here. So my friend and I got to talking about garden stuff the other day, as we always do, and she is a new gardener. And so we were talking about like our successes and our failures for Garden 2025, and we got on the topic of cold weather crops, specifically her broccoli and cabbages. And she was saying that she just had a terrible year for them. And I inquired more, asked, what she planted, how she planted, things like that. And she told me that she waited until after the last frost, planted them, and then they all burned up. And sometimes the longer you have been doing things, it's hard for you to take a step back and put yourself in the footprints of a beginner and kind of remember the mistakes you made along the way. But I remember that I made that exact same mistake the first year that I started gardening. So my hope for this video is to pack it with as much information as I possibly can so that you don't have to make those same mistakes too. And I feel like as she said that, it was just very inspiring to me to do this with you guys. We'll go over it together and hopefully you can learn a thing or two. So if you are new to gardening, let's just first start with what are cold weather crops. So cold weather crops are oftentimes referred to cool weather crops. And these are going to be all of your crops that thrive in cooler climates and can tolerate frost. Growing cold weather crops is an amazing opportunity to extend your growing season because we can plant these oftentimes in the spring and fall. So whenever you hear people talk about having a spring garden or a fall garden, that is oftentimes what they are going to be referring to is all of your cold weather crops. Now, the ideal temperatures for cold weather crops are between 45 and 60 degrees during the daytime. Whenever temperatures start to get above those, you will notice that your cool weather crops will bolt or go to seed. And that just means that the taste and things gets very, very bitter within the plant itself and that they try to put more energy to flowering and making seed for the next year. So the spring and fall window is a perfect time to plant them because they thrive in the cold and then that will allow them to not go to seed as quickly. Let's also cover the frost spectrums really quickly because that's something you're going to hear me talk about. So a light frost is going to be anything from 28 degrees to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Most all of your leafy greens are going to be able to survive a light frost. And then a hard frost is going to be anything from 24 to 28 degrees Fahrenheit, which most all of your brassicas can withstand hard frost. Anything below 20 degrees, I would recommend that you cover with some plastic or maybe like a cold frame. There are certain varieties of things that can go below that, but just your standard cold crop varieties probably will likely not be able to survive anything below 20. And if they do, they can withstand really, really severe damages. But a great way to prevent that from happening if you're in a very cold state like I am is just to cover them or put them in a frame of some sort so that they can't withstand freezes directly. So now let's go over some specific cold weather crops. So first of all, you have all of your leafy greens, which will be your kale, lettuce, spinach, chard. These are very, very easy to grow for beginners. They really, really thrive in those cold climates. And it's a great way to get your foot in the door for the gardening season because oftentimes those are one of the first things that we plant as a gardener. Another example of cold weather crops are your carrots, beets, radishes. Not all root vegetables are considered cold weather crops, like potatoes, for instance. That is a warm weather crop and they are a root vegetable. But carrots specifically are a great cold weather crop. And here in Iowa, they can actually be overwintered in the soil itself, which is a great way to just save space and have a plant going for you all year long. And then we have our alliums, which would be garlic, onions, and leeks. We started onions together in a previous video, and that is because they go out before all of the warm weather hits. They really, really thrive in cold climates. Garlic is something that I have never grown personally, but usually gets planted in the fall and then I believe harvested maybe like midsummer-ish, but they also really, really prefer cold climates and have to be overwintered in order for your bulb to form. And then the last category is all of our brassicas. So that would be your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, and those are very, very frost tolerant. I think people are just a little bit scared to plant them out super early, but they can really withstand a lot of cold. You would be very, very surprised. So like my last frost date for zone 5B is right around May 15th-ish, and I plant all of my brassicas and cold weather crops out 2 months before that, usually around the March 15th area. Even if we get some hard frost here and there, usually all of that stuff is able to bounce back really, really good. So brassicas are a great thing to start and go ahead and throw in your soil whenever it's workable. Like I said, for me, usually around the March-ish area, but it's a great way to get started on your summer garden by planting all of these things that already thrive in cold climates. So the biggest takeaways with your cold weather crops is just remember that they thrive in the cold. Do not make the same mistake that I and my friend did by waiting until the last frost date to plant them out, because like I said, the temperature fluctuations going from cold to hot will likely cause your plants and things to bolt, and then you won't get to enjoy your cold weather crops. So if you've ever ran into that issue and you think to yourself, why have I not been able to grow cabbages? Why have I not been able to grow broccolis, Brussels sprouts, whatever the case may be? It could just be because you're not planting them at the right time. So give yourself adequate time before the summer hits to go ahead and get all of these things in the ground. So that is what we are going to be working on today. I went ahead and pulled out everything that we need to start all of our cold weather crops together. I also pulled out all of my peppers. Now, peppers are a warm weather crop and they are slow to grow whenever you start them from seed. Last year, I think I started them at the end of February and they weren't quite where I wanted them to be. So this time around, I'm going to give them an additional 30 days to really get sized up before I plant them outside. But let's go ahead and get started and we will go over all of the varieties and things that I am doing. And actually, before we do that, I wanted to show you guys this. So Homegrown sent me a huge variety pack of vegetables, and I don't get paid to say this. I don't make any money off of this. They're not paying me to say any of these things. They sent this to me, and I thought it was really, really cool for beginners. And I know there's a lot of people out there that like the survival packs of seeds. And this one has 26,200 seeds and 55 varieties. So I thought that this would be a perfect gift for a beginner gardener. Maybe you have somebody in your family that's looking into getting into gardening. There's probably over 40 packs of seeds in there. Plus we are going to start some out of the pack down here that I didn't have in my seed catalog. And I think the price is roughly $40-ish. I just thought it was a really, really cool, and I'm really, really grateful for them to send this to me. So if you are looking for just a gift or even for yourself to get into gardening that has all of it already together, I just wanted to show you guys that because I thought it was really, really cool. But first and foremost, I am going to go ahead and pull out some dirt of this big tote that we started the other day. All this is Miracle Grow potting soil. I added some more perlite and then worm castings. And the thing with it is it's super, super dry now because it's been down in my basement for, I don't know, probably 2-ish weeks. So we need to get some of the soil out and get it wet down. And make sure that you are wetting your starting mix before you use it, because otherwise your seeds will not stay in place. They can move around a lot and not be at the correct depth whenever you plant them. And if you start with super, super dry soil, oftentimes your soil can be a little bit hydrophobic, which just means that it doesn't want to absorb the water properly. So I always go ahead and just soak it down, and it should not be dripping water, but it should maintain its shape really, really nicely. So get a bunch of water on that. And then I am so sorry if you can hear my chicken. I have one of the little babies inside because she's not feeling the best. So she's over there peeping away. But these are my burpee seed starting trays. Now, these are a little bit of an investment, but what I like about them is that the bottom pushes up and you can just take the whole block out directly. Some of the other cheaper seed trays are just not my favorite ones to work with. And I've mentioned these several times on my channel. These are my absolute favorites. They have tons of different sizes, so that is what we are going to use. And I was originally going to use these orange ones, but you know what? I think let's go ahead and get one of these big green ones here, and we will start getting some cold weather crops started together. Okay, so before we go over what we are starting, let's just go ahead and get this filled up with dirt. And dry soil does take quite a bit of water, you guys. When you think you are done adding water, you're not. Especially if it's really dry like mine is. It does take quite a little bit to just get it wet down, at least to start with. Now, some people also do soil blocks. I've never done soil blocks. I've heard good things about soil blocks, but I've never done it before. So if you've done soil blocks, let me know how you like it. I just always use my seed starting trays because I think it's easier, but I think the blocks are really cool. I have just never tried to do them. I just like being able to take out an entire tray for hardening off instead of having to worry about all of the little squares, you know what I mean, in a soil block. I'm still adding water to this, you guys. And that's the thing too, with watering your vegetables. Sometimes you think that you are watering really, really deeply and it just absorbs on the top of it. So oftentimes I will switch to bottom watering after some root growth has formed, because otherwise I just feel like the water does not evenly distribute very well. Okay, I think that's good enough at least to work with. All of the big chunks and pieces, for the most part, I strained out the last time that we made the soil together. So let's go ahead and get our tray all set up, and then we will start getting these filled up. And I am going to start extra of everything. Now, you can get online if you know the square footage of your garden and kind of just Google, like how many pepper plants for a 3x16 row, for instance, and it will give you a number. But if I do exactly what it says, if things don't come up or sprout or whatever, then I'm, low on that. So what I found to work best for me is I always go ahead and just start a little bit extra. And then there's so many people in my community that I can sell my starts to if I have extra, or you can just plant them all and cross your fingers like I do every single year. I don't really feel like it's a bad thing if you end up with too many starts, unless you don't have the room for them. But thankfully, I do have a pretty big garden that I can put everything in. And I think whenever I looked it up, I want to say it was like 15 cabbages and things can fit in a 3x16 row. So we're probably going to start quite a little bit here. Some of the varieties I have never done before, but I ordered the seeds for them. So I just want to give things a try. And whenever we lived at my old house, I wasn't really able to experiment very much because I was very, very limited on space. So I always went with varieties that I knew were really good and going to work well for me. But that's what I love about having the big garden for this year and last year, is because I feel like I'm really able to plant a wider variety instead of just a few that I know my family and I will like. Because that's how you find new things that you like as well, is by just experimenting. So I'm very grateful and blessed that I have the extra space to be able to do that. And when you pack in your seed trays, make sure you're not pushing like the soil down as hard as you can, because you do want some aeration in the soil so that it's not like super stiff and water and air and things can't get through it. So I just give it a gentle push, but still try to make sure that it's really, really nice and fluffy. Okay, so the first thing I think we're going to get started with is all of our brassicas. Now, like I said, I did go ahead and make piles of everything, and I will go over all of that with you. So there are two types of broccolis that I grow every single year. This is Desico broccoli and Calabrese broccoli. The Desico broccoli has like shoots instead of a full head, but my family and I enjoy both of them. I like using the Calabrese broccoli for like prep and things like that, and putting like the giant heads after I boil them and things into the freezer. These work really, really good for storage. And then the Desico works really, really good for fresh eating. So it says start indoors 8 weeks before outdoor planting. So we are right on the money with that. And it looks like we need to put these 1/4 of an inch deep. And for each of them, I would say I'm probably going to start around 6 to 8. We are also going to do a fall planting of all of these too. So we'll harvest in the spring and in the fall. But for each of these varieties, I think we're going to go with 8 for now. So maybe in each seed cell, I'm going to do 2. And then so I don't forget what I've put in each row, I'm going to go ahead and just put this little packet right here for that row. And then all I'm going to do is just take some of the soil and sprinkle it right back on top here. Okay, so our Calabrese is done, and now we need to do the same thing with our Desico, and it looks like the planting and everything is the exact same for this one. Last year, the bugs got a hold of all of my cold weather crops, so I did buy some netted row covers that I am very excited to use for this year, because last year, the chickens got to enjoy all the cold weather crops, and hopefully this year, we get to enjoy all the cold weather crops. Next on the list is Brussels sprouts, and last year, I had them almost ready to harvest before the worms got them. My family and I, we love Brussels sprouts. Like I said, we love boiling them and putting them in the freezer for several different recipes, eating fresh. You can also make like Brussels sprout salad with fresh Brussels sprouts. Really, really good and super, super convenient to have. So it looks like these are 1/4 of an inch deep as well. And I am going to not plant as many of these, maybe like 5. So we'll do, or actually, you know what, we'll do 6 so that I can start 2 in each. So there is two. And then for this last one here, we will also do, it's beautiful outside down here, friends. It doesn't look like it's, you know, like really pretty outside or whatever, but it's very warm. I think it's like 51 outside today. So very, very nice for this time of year. Okay, and then this last little seed cell on this row is still open. And then the next thing we are going to do is some cabbage. So red acre cabbage is just your traditional red cabbage from MI Gardener. This is a late flat Dutch cabbage. I grew this one last year and it was really, really good. So we are going to do this one again. And it looks like 1/2 inch deep is what we need to plant them at. And I think for these ones, I think I'm going to go ahead and just do 8 because on the other rows, like my tomatoes, for instance, those grow up. So the sun comes over this direction and it shades out the bottom of the row. If I have too many cabbages that need to go like in other locations, you can put them in front of something that will give them shade. Just make sure that you do not put them in like super, super direct sunlight in the middle of the summer because they will just all completely burn and you won't get anything. But with these ones, if we end up planting a little bit too many, I can find some other locations to put them in if we are a little bit methodical about it. So here are those ones. I don't know about you guys, but this just makes me so incredibly excited. I'm very excited for Garden 2026 and to see what this year brings for all of us. And every time this time of year rolls around, I can just feel my seasonal depression leaving my body. I am so ready for summer. Okay, and since I still have one little seed cell down here, these are all of the late flat Dutch cabbages, and then here's an empty spot that I'm going to use for the red acre cabbages. And instead of doing 2 in one of the cells, I think I'm going to go ahead and do 4, and then once these start to sprout, we will move them around into another location. But I don't want to just have one empty seed cell, so let's just go ahead and put our red acre cabbages in this one. I went ahead and started 5 in there. It's totally fine. Like I said, once they sprout, you can repop them and move them around. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is just go ahead and use some of these plant labels here and get everything labeled up. I find that these work really, really good and they're very cheap, especially if you use the same varieties year after year after year. You can just save these. I don't know where my other ones went. I had a bunch of them, but if you plan on planting the same things, make sure you save them because then you don't even have to buy them again for the next year. Calabrese broccoli, the Seco broccoli, Dutch cabbage, and then for the Brussels sprout one, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the edge of the third one so that I know that this one is different. Or actually, you know what? I don't have to do that. We can do it this way and put the other label where I just had that one. And then this one is red acre cabbage. And then I'm going to go ahead and give everything a quick drink. Make sure all of those seeds get really, really well saturated. Well, you know what, friends? I don't think I put soil on top of these last ones, so let's do that real quick. All right, and our first one is done. None of these will need a heat mat except for the peppers. So as I get them done, I'm just gonna stick them on the corner of my island, and once they start to pop up, we will get them under some grow lights. But that makes me super happy to get one of them done at least. So I went ahead and got another tray filled up. I am making a mess, which is why I laid the towel down in the hopes I wouldn't get dirt everywhere, and it seems I am still doing that. So this next tray is just going to be a little bit a smorgasbord of a whole bunch of different things. So I realized the cauliflower. I didn't start any cauliflower, and I forgot that I pulled this one out of the homegrown seed variety pack because I didn't have any. So let's go ahead and get some of these started as well. So it looks like we need 1/4 of an inch. And one thing I did want to mention, so you can use smaller trays to start your seeds in. Anything that needs a heat mat or requires heat, I typically do start them in smaller seed cells just so that the heat can evenly distribute faster. But since the cold weather crops do not require a heat mat, usually I start them in a bigger seed cell because one, they're going to need a bigger seed cell eventually, and it just saves you some space and time. So if you want to start them in a smaller seed cell, feel free. But I have found that with these, since they don't require the heat, starting them in a bigger one so that you don't have to replant them like really, really soon is kind of nice just to have the extra space and availability, and then we can repot later. So I did go ahead and do 8 cauliflowers. I did not plant cauliflower last year, so hopefully we get a cauliflower harvest this year. I must not have ordered the seeds last year either because I didn't have them in my organizer. So maybe that's why I didn't start them. I can't honestly really remember, but I've never grown cauliflower. So hopefully we get some because we do like it. I've never grown it. I never tried to. I've heard it's kind of tricky and a lot of people struggle to get the cauliflower to like get really, really big and have a big head. So if you have any tips on that, let me know. Go ahead and get these watered in just really quickly. And then I am just going to go ahead and throw a label in here because I moved that seed packet over. So this whole row is our cauliflower. And then the next thing that I pulled out for all of our cold weather stuff, let me redo my piles here, is kale. So usually I would just direct sow kale. I find that to be very, very easy. But the past 2 years that I've done that, I can't really get them to grow big. Like the leaves are very, very small and that's totally fine. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to break them off and like, chop them up and wash them that way. So I am going to go ahead and give myself a little bit of extra time for them to grow and then just plant them out in the garden directly. So I'm going to do a couple different kinds. Scarlet kale is one of my favorites. This is one that I grow every single year, but it is purple. So just be aware that if you cook it into things, it will likely change the color of your recipes. But the taste and flavor and everything is really, really good. So we are going to start, maybe 5 in that cell. And we're just going to devote maybe 3 of these to kale entirely. And then for our other leafy greens, like our chard, our lettuce, spinach, that sort of thing, I just direct sow it all out into the garden. It's very, very easy to do. And a lot of your lettuces and spinaches and chards and things like that are just cut and come again. So I go out there, cut it, and then let it grow back and can harvest it all year long. Again, lettuce is one of those that if you plant it in a very shady area in the summertime, as long as it doesn't get scorching hot, it will likely continue to grow for you. So this one is Lacinato dinosaur kale. I tried to grow this last year and I didn't have very good success with it. So hopefully this year we can get some. Again, I'm just going to do about 5. And then these last 2 are ones that I have never heard of before. They came in our little homegrown pack there. And we have Dwarf Siberian and Premier. Which one should we try? I was going to try both of them, but you know what? I think I'm just going to, let's try the Dwarf Siberian. These ones look really, really cool. And again, we're just going to do about 5. I have grown homegrown seeds before. They sent me a really cool flower pack last year. And like all of the flowers in my garden in the one row that you guys saw were all homegrown seeds. So the germination and stuff on them is very, very good, actually. I just like that you can buy things in bulk and there's like several different varieties in whatever it is that they offer. I think that is very, very neat. Go ahead and get these watered in as well. And with the kale, I don't care what variety or anything it is. I'm just going to stick one that says kale and then start planting over here. And then let's do like some sort of herb on this last one. I think we're going to go ahead and do some oregano. It says start indoors 4 weeks before last frost. And last year, I think I started it in early March and it still wasn't very big by the time that I planted it out. So some of these are just a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to try and give them some extra time and see how it works out for Garden 2026. But the oregano seeds are very, very tiny and all we have to do is just surface sow these. So just remember whatever one you do this with, because you will have to come back and water the surface more frequently. But oregano for me in Iowa is a perennial, and if I can get a bunch of these to grow, fingers crossed, I would like to start a space out there just for oregano specifically so that it can come back every single year. I've never been able to get it to come back, but it is a perennial. So I don't know if it's me or what the heck is going on with it, but maybe this year we'll have luck. Okay, and then we just get that watered in. Oregano going in. And then let's go ahead and finish off with our herbs and we will move on to some of those flowers. So I have dill, triple curled parsley, and cilantro that I am also going to be planting. I think all of these are about 1/4 of an inch deep. There are people that go really, really crazy with the herbs, and I love herbs, but I stick to like a very select few of them every single year. Ones that I know me and my family enjoy and that I use throughout my recipes a lot. So it's mostly parsley, cilantro, dill, basil, chive, chives is one that I would like to try this year. I have not been able to get chives to grow, and then like oreganos and things like that. I'm not super experimental when it comes to some of the other herbs. I probably need to expand that a little bit. Okay, so I don't know. I planted maybe 10 in there. Dill does tend to get very big, so if you plant it, make sure you have adequate space for it. Last year, I planted fennel for the first time, and it was really good, but I still have a ton of fennel in my freezer, so we do not need to plant fennel this year. But dill is just really nice for pickled items. We love having fresh dill, and it freezes beautifully. If you don't want to dehydrate it because you think that it loses like its flavor, I just freeze it in Ziploc freezer bags, and then I have it any single time that I want to make pickles, and it works out really well. Okay, and then let's do some of our parsley. This is triple curled, same variety that I did last year. And last year was such a strange year for me and probably a lot of you too. Like it went from being really cool and all of my cold weather crops doing really well to it being just scorching hot for, I'm talking probably like a week. So a lot of my herbs and things as a spring crop that I planted bolted very early. So I didn't get to enjoy them as much until the fall. So hopefully the weather will cooperate and my parsley and cilantro will last a little bit longer than they did last year. Okay, and then cilantro. I love cilantro. There are people that think it tastes like soap. There's like an actual reason for that. I can't remember if it's like your guys' face buds are messed up or what, but I feel so bad for you guys. Because cilantro is so good. And I'm going to start a lot of it. We're going to have a lot come up, and that is totally fine. We will move them around, but I'm thinking like 20 or 30 cilantro seeds because we love it. Putting it in fresh salsas. Also, like smoothies and things, sometimes I will add cilantro in there, depending on what kind of a smoothie you're making, and it just gives a really good flavor. And it's very good for you. And then the cilantro seeds are coriander, which is another thing that you can use for cooking. So you get 2 products for the price of 1. So there is that. And then, so we got all of our kale. Those are all of our peppers, onions. Okay. So it looks like the next thing that we're going to move on to is snapdragons. So I have 5 little seed cells here that we are going to start some snapdragons in. And snapdragons are one of my favorite flowers, but for the longest time, I did not know that these are a cold weather loving flower. Every single time that I tried to plant them, I would plant them whenever it got really warm outside, and then I had no success at them like growing and blooming. So snapdragons really enjoy the cold weather. So I always just go ahead and start them whenever I start my cold weather crops and then plant them out about the same time as them as well. So I have several different kinds. So I just have a plain yellow snapdragon, and then this is orange, yellow, and red. These 2 are seeds that I saved from Garden 2024 actually. So we're going to go ahead and get some of these used up. And then the other ones came from M.I. Gardener. So we have Defiance Red, which is new for me, White Snowflake, and Apple Blossom. Love M.I. Gardener seeds, and they always have really good selections of snapdragons on their website, so I order new ones every single year. So let's go ahead and get some of these in our seed cells. And I wrote favorite on this because it's like a tri-colored snapdragon. Like I said, orange, yellow, and red. They're absolutely beautiful. And then these, I think it's 1/4 of an inch. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to sprinkle a bunch in here, and I will thin that out. The seeds are so small, like it's really hard not to overplant snapdragons, but you can thin them out later. And that's typically what I will do is I'll just take 6 or 7 out of the cell that look the strongest and healthiest, and then plant those ones. We have just our standard yellow. Oh no, friends. Oh, I should have read this packet. It says surface sow. That's not good. Well, hopefully those ones I just started will come up okay, because I did not put that much soil on top of them. So we will see how that goes. I'm just going to leave them. I'm not going to try and go back and do anything. I'll just wet this down really good so that the seeds have a better chance of coming up through the soil. But that is why you should read before you start doing stuff. So got the red ones. Now let's do the white snowflake. And then lastly, we have our apple blossom. And again, I think I'm just going to go ahead and start them all because there wasn't that many seeds in there to begin with. Okay, Second tray all done. All right, friends. So the next thing that we are going to move on to is peppers. Now, I'm just going to run you through all of the varieties because starting them is the exact same for like every single pepper so that you don't have to watch me start 80 million of these because we do have a lot to start. So for peppers, I always do sweet and hot. And like I said, I just want to give them some extra time to size up before we plant them outside. So I have several different types that are needing used up, like extra seed packets and things like that. And I think for a 3x16 row, I think it's roughly 22 to 28 peppers per row, depending on the pepper. Some pepper plants get very, very large while others stay pretty small. So it just depends what types of varieties you're doing for how many we can do like per row or per plot. So that is what I'm going to go with. We have 2 rows that we're going to devote to just peppers, and I'm going to organize them by sweet and hot. So for all of our sweet peppers, I have some Cubanelle sweet peppers. Now, these are just some seeds that I found at Walmart that need used up. And then I have a variety of different bell peppers from M.I. Gardner. So we have California Wonder, we have Purple Beauty Bell, we have Golden California Wonder, we have Coral, we have Diamond Bell peppers. And then these are our Nova peppers that I purchased from Johnny Seeds whenever I purchased my onions. These are an orange bell pepper that I have never tried before. And then these are from, I think, Thrive Market, and they're just a big red bell pepper. So we're just going to try several different varieties and kinds of bell peppers. Last year, all of my bell pepper plants like burnt up because it got so hot so fast, like I was telling you guys. So really the only pepper harvest that I got was my mini bells, which I am not going to be planting this year from M.I. Gardner because they're itty bitty. They're fun, but just not very practical for somebody like me who likes to preserve and process a lot. So we got those and like our banana peppers, pepperoncinis, and then just like serranos and things like that. Mostly all of like the hot peppers I was able to harvest, but I did not get very many bell peppers. So hopefully this year we have a really, really good harvest of those. But then for sweet peppers as well, these are a little bit different. We're going to do some Hungarian sweet wax peppers and then sweet banana peppers, which you can never go wrong with those. And then also some peppercini peppers. Peppercini peppers are my favorite pepper in the entire world. I love making Mississippi pot roast, and I love pickling peppercini peppers to put on salads and in pasta salads, potato salad. It doesn't matter what it is. You can throw them into absolutely anything, and they just add really, really good flavor. So we are going to start a lot of those. But then for the hot peppers, we are going to do some cayenne orange, some poblanos, some serranos from Garden 2024, some big Jim peppers. Now, these are supposed to be hot. Like on the back, it says that they're hot, but I have not found that to be the case. I find them to be more like a mild to medium pepper, and they get huge, and they're really, really fun to harvest. So if you never tried these are on M.I. Gardner's website. They're really, really fun and taste really good. And then we are also going to be starting some jalapeno peppers. So for all of these, besides the peppercini peppers and the jalapeno peppers, I think I'm going to start anywhere from 2 to 3, and then we will kind of thin that out as they grow. But we got a lot of peppers to put in this, and I looked for my smaller seed cells and I cannot find them. So I guess we're just going to use a bigger seed cell for all of the peppers, which is totally fine. I'm going to put this one in my laundry room with a heat mat under it because peppers do need heat to germinate. I can't remember the ideal temperature. I will leave it on the screen for you, but they do require a heat mat and a lot of heat to get the seeds going, and sometimes it can take quite a while to germinate. So that's where I'm going to set them, and we'll just go ahead and use the bigger seed cell, no problem at all. But I'm going to go ahead and get started on this and get all of these planted. Oh, and I'm so sorry, friends. I think I forgot to mention these all go 1/4 of an inch deep. My father-in-law actually just called me and said that he's coming over to work on the garage. So perfect timing of getting all of this stuff done. He is going to be putting plywood up so that we can get the garage insulated and, all of the things and have like babies out there to hatch from our breeding stock. And just if the chickens need to be, separated from the main flock, it'll just be really nice to have another portion of our home that is heated, that is not in my house, so that the chickens can go out there. So super, super happy to have that project done, but also very happy to have all of this done, friends. This feels so incredibly good to get done. It makes me so incredibly excited. I can't wait for the weather to get a little bit better so that we can all start working out in the garden together and getting things planted. But we got all of our cold weather crops done, plus all of our peppers, and then plus all of our celery. There are a couple other things that I need to start, like onions. I do want to start a couple more of those. I had a lot come up the other day that we did seeds together, but I still just don't think it's enough. So I'm going to go ahead and start another round of those. I was able to get 4 rosemary seeds to germinate, and that's it. So that is likely something I will have to purchase. But overall, I had a really, really fun day. I'm going to take some time, clean up my kitchen, get a couple of other projects going around here, and then I will keep you updated on how everything sprouts and what we get and what we don't get, and the successes and the failures, so on and so forth. Gardening is not black and white, and it's something that I wish it was, but no matter how many times somebody says that something works for them, it might not work for you. And the only way to find out is just to experiment. If you are looking into getting into gardening, or you're new, or you're past your first year of gardening and you still feel overwhelmed, I would just like to tell you to not overcomplicate things. There's no right or wrong way to garden, and the only way to learn is to make mistakes and experiment and get your hands dirty and get out there and see what works for you. So I am wishing you guys all of the gardening success for 2026. Let me know down below what seeds you are starting this month. I love hearing about what you guys are planning on planting. As always, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week, and I will catch you in next week's video. Bye, friends.